Knowing your customer's problem life cycle. This is such a great topic. I really enjoy teaching on this, and it's one I actually don't talk about a whole lot. So we're going to get into this. I was actually reviewing one of my favorite books by Alex Hormozy, $100 Million Leads. I was also in the, just kind of coming off another book that I have referenced in my previous videos. This guy, John Asperian, he's a Brit. He wrote this book, Content DNA. And so if you don't mind reading the the flavors and the colors, I'm just giving my UK brethren a little bit of crap because they spell words differently. But anyway, those are two fantastic books. And what I want to talk about specifically today is understanding and knowing your customer's problem life cycle. And why that's really important is because your product or service has the ability to directly answer whatever problem they have. And as Alex Hormozy brought up, whenever you create a solution for a problem, there's always a next problem. There's always something else. Even if someone was handed $10 million, okay, so now they're not necessarily having issues with wealth, but they are maybe having issues with how to handle that wealth, right? There's always another problem. There's always a next. And inserting yourself into your client's problem life cycle is how your business can make money, and also how they'll always come back to you because you are the product expert. So I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself though, because you can't understand your customer's problem life cycle or the life cycle of their problems unless you understand your customer, unless you really understand your client, your ideal client avatar. Now, for those of you who are purists and maybe who have been coaching with me before or have watched this channel for a little bit of time, you understand the way that I define business vision is with 3 C's. Those 3 C's are core purpose, core values, and client avatar. So understanding your core purpose is really what the business is about, what it specifically does. It doesn't just do real estate. You are a property manager of single-family dwellings in this specific school district in Michigan City, right? Like whatever. Like you are really dialed in terms of what it is you do, and you're almost obnoxious about what you don't do. No, I really don't do commercial properties. I only do single-family residential, for example. Okay, so when you do that, you start to occupy the mental real estate of people because you become known for that. Like I have not rented properties personally. I have a property management business, but I have not personally rented properties for years. And I still get people who have known me 10, 12, 15, 20 years ago that'll message me and say, hey, do you have any place to live for my niece, nephew, son, daughter, whatever? And I'm like, I have no idea what's available. And rightfully so, because I have people that manage that for me. So it's interesting how once you kind of occupy that mental real estate, like again, many of you know I used to run a channel called Landlord Coach. And that was my moniker that I published under the Time Wealthy Investor 2.0. And I, back when I considered myself solely a real estate guy. And I called an old friend of mine and he says, hey, how's the Landlord Coach? I'm like, well, I'm identifying myself differently now. And he kind of chuckled. He said, well, what are you doing? And I kind of told him, he says, well, being a strategist is kind of what you've always done. You just did it for real estate people. I said, yeah, I know. This is just a good evolution for me because I really like working with the avatar that I have identified, right? I used to work with an avatar specifically identified as mom and pop landlords or mom and pop property managers. And I have niched up a little bit to say, yeah, I don't mind working with people who are real estate investors and mom and pop landlords, or even people who want to do fix and flips or wholesaling or whatever else it is, or maybe they're realtors, whatever area of real estate that they're in, because I have such a broad base of knowledge in that realm. But I also am really I love business in general, and I really love small business because I love the fact that we as small business owners, we can maneuver, we can pivot, we can do a lot of stuff that big businesses just can't do because they're too big. Because trying to change directions on a dime is really difficult for larger businesses just because they've got different problems. They can't move around like we can. So I really love the fact that being a small business owner, I understand the problem of the small business owner because, again, my avatar is really dialed in. I like working with Christian married business owners of people who have kids at home. Now, if they don't check all of those boxes, does it mean I won't work with them? No, of course not. But the further and further out they go, it'll become less and less relevant to them. My coaching and teaching will become less and less relevant to them, and they're just not good clients. And that's okay. So this is why it's really important for you to dial in and know your specifically, first and foremost, you got to know your avatar. You got to know specifically who you want to work with. And the really great point I wanted to bring up that John Asperian wrote about in Content DNA is be really specific about what you don't want. Like, who is the client that you don't want to work with? And that's a really great start, because sometimes we do just focus on, like guys like me, we're saying, you got to know your client avatar. But he made a really good point in that book that you've also got to know who you don't want to work with. And when you really get clear about who you want to work with, like, I don't want to work with get rich quick people. I don't want to work with folks who are going to be dishonest in their dealings, or they're going to try to get a deal from grandma who's wearing her little white sneakers and she doesn't really know how real estate works, and someone tries to maneuver her out of her house for an amount of money that is less than what she is owed if she sold it on the regular market. So there's lots of unscrupulousness that goes on in business. I see it a lot in real estate, but that's not really the folks that I'm interested in. And as a result, they will not watch this channel. They will not reach out to me. They don't, if they're looking for marketing specific, like heavy marketing, because they want to pound people and they want to go Grant Cardone style. Again, I think Grant Cardone is a brilliant marketer. I think he is a horrible salesman. And anytime people start to emulate him in sales, you notice it. But he is a brilliant marketer, and I've learned a lot from him. And in fact, I bought one of his courses, I don't know, $600-700, and it was really good. But when he starts teaching sales, I'm like leaning back in my chair a little bit, because the way his punch in the mouth style of selling just does not resonate with me, and it certainly doesn't resonate with my client avatar. So, but the way Alex Hormozy sells, at least with the leads, in terms of him generating the leads, it's like, give until people start asking, what's it like to work with you? And that really has worked really, really well for me, and certainly my client avatar. So this gets back to what I'm talking about here, knowing your client and knowing your client avatar really, really well. And this may take a little bit of trial and error. But let's say, for argument's sake, we'll come up with a fictitious business here. Let's say that you install fences, okay? So generally, you can start to dial that in pretty quickly and saying, okay, well, I'm doing this on the fly here. So let's say if you install fences, well, that obviously is, it probably you want to deal with homeowners, right? I don't think there's a lot of renters out there that are gonna maybe want to build a fence, or it would even be allowed to build a fence on their property. So you're looking specifically for homeowners. Would it make sense that you're looking for someone who maybe families, right? Or maybe even single moms or single parents, but generally people who have children. Also maybe people who have pets. So now we've got homeowners who have children, who have pets, right? And it could be all three, right? But generally they have to be homeowners. Having pets or having kids, and if they've got all three, that's kind of the trifecta. Because again, could you really land the plane if they were just homeowners? Well, yeah, maybe just on a privacy fence. But maybe, people are fanatical about their kids, and then sometimes they're even more fanatical about their pets. So would it then make sense if you're trying to understand this problem life cycle? So now they've got these young kids running around the backyard. They're trying to keep their pets corralled. They always have to walk them on a leash rather than just let the pets run in the backyard. So now that you're starting to understand the problems of the avatar, your ideal avatar, now you're inserting yourself into the problem life cycle. So let's think about this. So let's say that they just that they brought a new baby home. Are they worried about a fence in the backyard? Probably not, because the baby's not very mobile, right? Maybe they just brought a new puppy home, right? And they're kind of worried about, the dog getting out. Well, is that something that they're worried about right now? Probably not right away, but probably sooner than later, because that dog's going to grow up fast. So So now you're inserting themselves into the life cycle. Say, hey, how about protecting, these most precious assets that you have, which are your kids, your pets, your loved ones. And would it then make sense, like once this child starts to get mobile, that now you're starting to think like they are? And if you were to put a billboard maybe right outside of let's say there's a billboard that you could rent that'd be right outside of a daycare, which has a fence, which basically has a fence and says, are you protecting your most valuable assets? Something like that, with face of a kid, maybe a face of a puppy or something like that on there as well. And that, and then you just have, fence installers USA or whatever. There's, most billboards are done horribly because they try to put way too much data on there. Pictures tend to be your best friends because it evokes that emotion immediately. It's the company who installs house alarms that doesn't put up their, house alarms and secured access and like lists this big giant resume on a billboard that people are driving by at 70 miles an hour while they're on their phone. But if you did have a guy, cutting a screen with a black ski mask climbing through a window, and you could say, who's in your home right now? Right? And then maybe just your website, like securityusa.com, whatever. Like all of a sudden you have evoked an immediate emotion in that person driving by, like, holy crap, maybe we should get a home alarm. Like, you don't have to explain what that is. So it's really interesting that when you know your avatar and you can insert yourself into their problem life cycle, how you now can become the expert in all areas around that. So this is also why it's important to you for you to define your core purpose, so you're not fragmented. You're not fragmented in the minds of other people. Again, for a lot of people, I'm a real estate guy and I'm known as that. And yeah, admittedly, I'm pretty damn good at that. I know a lot about it because I made about every mistake you could possibly make in that business. So this is why I understand when I'm seeing the mistakes of others, and I can help and teach other people and help them avoid those same mistakes. So now let's say that they want to buy your fence. Okay. So they see it. They're like, oh man, I saw your ad. This was great. Yep. I want to put up a fence. I want to keep the kids in. I want to keep the pets in. Okay, great. Well, now what is that fence going to need? Over time, that fence needs maintenance. Over time, that fence is going to need, it's going to need things, right? If there was storm damage on those fences, right, maybe they'll call you, right? And this is something where you should insert yourself and check in with folks. Let's say they had a big windstorm and that fence could get blown down, especially if it's a flat fence. And that wind catches, especially here in the Midwest, it's not uncommon for those 4x4 posts to just snap off of the ground. So, would that make sense to maybe reach out to them after a storm event? Does that fence, is it going to need maintenance over time? Well, in the Midwest, in anything, really anywhere, wood fences are going to need maintenance. They just are. They're going to need power wash. They're going to need stained and sealed, and they're just going to need maintenance over time. Maybe even vinyl fences, they tend to crack and break sometimes over time as they age. Does that make sense that they might need some sort of maintenance? Yes, it does. So this is how you're inserting yourself into your customer's problem life cycle. Maybe since they installed that fence on a stretch of lawn, well, now mowing and trimming and doing all around these little posts, now they've got another problem. So maybe it makes sense to apply mulch around there for them, or put a base level of gravel or pea gravel or something that's decorative so they don't have to worry about that. And that's another problem that you could solve for them. And again, maybe that's not something you do, but maybe that's something that you can hire someone else to solve that problem for them that you can then charge for. So this is how you inserting yourself into your customer's problem life cycle. And again, over time, as that fence starts to wear out, maybe they buy another property, maybe they go somewhere else, maybe they get a rental and they want to install a fence. Now you are their guy or their gal. So does this make sense in terms of you inserting yourself and understanding the customer's problem life cycle first and foremost, you have to understand your client, your ideal client avatar. And then once you understand your ideal client avatar and all the problems that they have, as a homeowner, as someone who maybe has kids, as someone who's a pet owner, as someone who's a Presbyterian, I don't know, I'm just making it up, but whatever their problem is, you have the solution for whatever your business does. Okay. And so it really doesn't make much of a difference, what those problems are, as long as it's in alignment with what you can that you can solve for them. So that's pretty much it. So understanding the problem life cycle of your client is really, really important for lots of reasons, because it makes your marketing much more effective, and you don't have to spend so much effort on doing that. One really cool thing, if you have noticed there on the sliding ticker there, is strategicboardroom.com. I'm really super excited, and thanks so much for the folks at Tree Frog Marketing. They live in my town here, and I know that they do work all over the United States. If you are looking for a marketing company, I should have probably had their link up there, but I think it's Tree Frog. I think it's just treefrog.com. Maybe it's Tree Frog Marketing. Give me a second, and I will pull this up. Yeah, it's treefrogmarketing.com. So for those folks, if you are looking even just for, I know they don't do just basic websites anymore. They have a whole marketing thing that they work with me on, but treefrogmarketing.com. Those folks are the bee's knees. So that is all I have, everybody, for today. Thanks so much. Again, just check out my website. Tell me what you like about it. Tell me what you hate about it. I actually think it's an amazing site. So thanks guys, again, for those at Tree Frog Marketing for the work you did. All right, that's all I have for today. So yeah, start putting this into practice. Start thinking in terms of who your ideal avatar is, and start thinking of the problems that you can solve for them. I'll see you guys next time.